Hippie Rasputin is back to learn you about some stuff. So sit your ass down.
A wise guy, eh?
Salutations, fellow nerds. I'm Rick Y, and today is November 6th, 2025. I wasn't even going to do a video today. I had some personal stuff to deal with, but once again, the internet's complete lack of understanding around a specific set of topics was just too incoherent for me to ignore. Brian, in my comments section, I'm looking at you. So, without further ado, what's communism? And why do you keep getting it wrong? First, let's begin with my own personal position. I am a secular humanist and a democratic socialist. Oh, okay, so what I'm hearing is that you're a Marxist Satanist. Oh my god, I haven't seen you in forever. Let me clarify. My secularism comes from my inherent personal atheism, which doesn't worship Satan. In fact, it doesn't worship anything. I don't believe in a Satan. That simply means that I don't believe in a God. Out of the thousands of gods humanity has ever conceived of, I believe in one fewer than any modern monotheist. If you can ignore and find ludicrous the notion of gods like Zeus or Ahura Mazda, I do the same just for the Abrahamic God of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It's not complicated, and I don't demand everyone believe as I do. I'm just kind of filling you in as to who I am and where I come from. My only real spiritual connection is with humanity itself. When it comes to being a democratic socialist, again, that's not communism. Democratic socialism is, lack of a better term, capitalism with social guarantees. Systems that benefit the most people under democracy as a driver of lawmaking and accountability. If you picture society as like a big house, communism wants to burn the house down and rebuild it from the start. Democratic socialism wants to remodel it so that everyone has a room and running water and warm linens and a couple of books on their shelves. But I thought you said you were a socialist. Aren't all socialists communists? That's a legitimately good question, and no, not at all. But so many people think these are interchangeable that we need to really dissect the terminology and history to understand how it got so confused. Right, but socialism is dangerous. Socialism has killed hundreds of millions of people. Actually, that's a little misleading, and it stems from the book called The Black Book of Communism, published in 1997, which was right after the fall of the Soviet Union. It tried to tally every death under governments that called themselves socialist or communist: Stalin's USSR, Mao's China, Pol Pot's Cambodia, and others. But the book counts every famine, civil war, and political purge in those countries as a direct result of the ideology, even if they were caused by authoritarian policies, war, incompetence, or natural disasters. It doesn't separate communism as a theory from authoritarianism in practice. The editor of the book literally wrote that communist regimes turned mass crime into a full-blown system of government, and that they were responsible for more deaths than Nazism. But that's not neutral scholarship, that's ideological framing of historical events. This was 1997, the West was doing a victory lap over the Cold War. The narrative wasn't meant to explain history, it was meant to moralize capitalism and vilify anything left of the Reagan administration. It pretends to be a neutral ledger, but it's actually propaganda dressed up as a spreadsheet. By his logic, we would have to blame capitalism for every death in the Congo Free State under King Leopold, or let's say the Bengal famine under British rule, or the Iraq war under Western imperialism. I mean, if this is the standard, I would love to see the math on, I don't know, the indigenous populations around the world. I'm sure they would like a word. He uses emotionally loaded language like monstrous crimes and the logic of evil to lump every leftist movement under Stalinism, no matter how different they may be. The numbers became a meme because they're shocking and politically useful, not because they're methodologically sound. So let's rewind a little bit. This is Karl Marx, a German philosopher, economist, historian, and revolutionary writer. He was deeply influenced by George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, a guy who popularized German idealism and the dialectical method, the idea that progress happens through contradictions and their resolution. Marx took that and built a framework for understanding how economic systems evolve over time, what we now call Marxism. Communism is a socio-economic end state where All property and means of production are collectively owned. Class distinctions are absolutely abolished. The state itself eventually completely dissolves. Goods are distributed according to need, from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. The goal is a stateless, classless society where cooperation replaces competition. But, and this is key, that was theory, not governance. Every real-world attempt, like the USSR, China, etc., ended up in a state socialism or authoritarianism, not Marx's utopia. By contrast, democratic socialism advocates democratic control of major institutions, public ownership of essential services like healthcare and education. Private markets still exist, but within guardrails that protect workers and reduce inequality. Reform through democracy, not revolution through violence. And the goal is economic fairness and political freedom. So no, socialism and communism are not the same thing. One works within democracy and the other, historically, did not. The impulse to equate leftist politics with communism dates back to the early 20th century after the 1917 Russian Revolution terrified capitalist nations. The Bolsheviks overthrew a monarchy and executed a royal family, so Western elites saw communism as an existential threat to their power. From there, communist became shorthand for enemy of the state. And during the first Red Scare from 1919 to 1920, the U.S. cracked down on unions and immigrants, painting workers as Soviet agents. And then came McCarthyism in the 40s and 50s, a full-blown witch hunt. People lost their jobs, reputation, and livelihoods for mildly progressive sympathies. It wasn't about ideas, it was about fear and control. Calling someone a communist became an easy rhetorical weapon. There was no need to debate, just slander and move on. This guy is Vladimir Lenin, and he was a Russian revolutionary and leader of the Bolshevik Party. He took Marx's ideas and modified them for Russia's unique conditions, a poor agrarian empire rather than an industrial one. He created the idea of an vanguard party, a small group of elite revolutionaries to lead the masses. That's where things started turning authoritarian. He also promoted democratic centralism, in theory open debate followed by unity, in practice top-down obedience. Sound familiar? This centralized model became the blueprint for authoritarian communism across the world. Homeboy Mao Zedong over here took it a little further, and he led China's Communist Party to victory after years of foreign occupation and civil war. Mao's anti-Western stance was born from what was called the Century of Humiliation, when colonial powers carved up China and exploited its people. To him, Marxism wasn't just economic, it was a national liberation from Western dominance, but his obsession with ideological purity led to catastrophe. The Great Leap Forward from 1958 to 1962 was a failed industrial plan that caused famine and the deaths of 30 to 45 million people. Then the Cultural Revolution from 1966 to 1976 was a mass purge of old ideas and bourgeois elements, causing another 1 to 2 million deaths and decades of trauma. Mao unified China, but he also built a cult of personality and crushed dissent. He didn't lead a communist paradise, he led an authoritarian nationalist state. Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam and Pol Pot in Cambodia both drew from Mao's revolution, but in opposite ways. Ho used Marxism as a tool for anti-colonial independence, not social cleansing. Pol Pot took Mao's ideology to genocidal extremes, murdering 1.7 to 2 million Cambodians, a full quarter of the population. So when people say, socialism leads to death, they're cherry-picking dictators and ignoring context. The problem is that correlation does not equal causation. Many nations have socialist systems without mass death. Sweden, Norway, Denmark, social democracies with high wealth, low poverty, and free elections. Canada, France, Japan, Germany, they're all mixed economies with universal health care and worker protection. And then there's Finland, one of the best examples of democratic socialism working damn near flawlessly. Finland blends capitalist markets with socialist values such as universal health care, free university education, strong labor unions, parental leave, unemployment insurance, pensions, and it's one of the highest gun ownership rates in Europe, 1.5 million firearms among 5.6 million people. They're democratic, prosperous, free, and consistently rank among the happiest nations on earth. That's not a communist hellhole. That's proof that socialism and democracy can create freedom and stability. Okay, fine, but that's... America's too big. A system like that could never work here. That's actually one of the weakest arguments out there. You see, scale isn't the problem, priorities are. We already run massive nationwide systems. Social Security, 70 million Americans monthly. Medicare has, I think, 65 million Americans covered on it. Public education up through high school is universal, coast to coast. The U.S. military, literally global in scope and scale. If we can run the largest military on Earth and send billionaires into space, then yeah, I think we can figure out how to keep people from going bankrupt over their insulin. And size doesn't stop other big countries. Germany has 84 million people, universal healthcare. France has 68 million people, same thing. Hell, Japan has 125 million people, universal healthcare, and high life expectancy. Canada, same continent, same challenges. It works. The U.S. spends $800 billion a year on defense and loses hundreds of billions to corporate loopholes. Reallocate just a fraction and you could fund universal health care, education, and child care several times over. So no, it's not America's too big, it's that our priorities are just too lopsided. This brings me back to my original thesis. There exists a profound distinction between authoritarian communism and democratic socialism, but thanks to decades of propaganda, rhetoric, and fear-mongering, meaningful discourse about these systems has become damn near impossible. The real obstacle isn't geography or economics, it's political division and corporate influence. The US system is designed for gridlock and for protecting moneyed interests, and that's why policies like Medicare for All, which regularly poll at 60 to 70% approval, never passes. Not because they can't work, but because too many politicians are paid to make sure that they don't. America's not too big for healthcare. It's just too busy pretending billionaires need more help than poor kids with cancer. So if you learned anything or enjoyed this deep dive into why people get communism and socialism so damn wrong and so damn often, like, subscribe, and most importantly, share this video. Maybe it'll give someone a new perspective, or at least a little bit more empathy. Don't be a stranger. Y'all come back now. You hear?